All right, and today we have Mr. Wil Slickers. How are you?
Good to see you. I'm pumped. You guys have a cool setup. I love this. Everything going on right now is really giving me the podcast nerd.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm just like, oh, I want to geek out. So this is so fun.
For those that don't know you, so you are the owner of a amazing network called Hospitality FM.
Yeah.
For anybody who's listening to the show, if you are not listening to Hospitality FM, what are you doing with your life? It is like the best show for everybody who's in hospitality, whether you're a hotelier or a short-term rental investor. Who else listens to your show?
So the three categories that we like to play within the network is hotels, short-term rentals, and restaurants. Like food and beverage is kind of playing a role, but it's a really hard sector for us. So we're kind of just like, all right, those are the three, but that one's not getting as much attention.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like restaurants would be hard. And like the thing that I wanted to talk to you about today, because I just feel like you get the inside knowledge on like all of the things that are emerging from like a trend perspective. So, you know, before we started, we were talking a little bit about like the future of Airbnb and like some things that you and I are excited about investing in.
Yeah.
So let's start with like the future of Airbnb. Like what are you seeing like as far as the direction that company is going, and how do you think that that's going to change over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I think it's gonna be a little bit of a hot take for the listeners.
Uh-oh.
I hope it's a hot take. I hope no one else is stealing my ideas. But I think if you look at Brian Chesky as a founder, he doesn't think in days, weeks, or months, or even years. He thinks in decades. And so it's played throughout the whole history of Airbnb. And some examples are, I think, do you remember when the last Blockbuster listed on Airbnb for like this like 1990s sleepover type theme? Well, guess what happens 10 years later? Airbnb comes up with icons. So over time,
Ooh, he plants stuff.
yeah, they trial in very small phases. They generate a ton of PR, and then they see what works, and then over time they really do build. So my kind of opinion is like icons is the replacement of experiences, and I think experiences was really hard for Airbnb because they couldn't control the inventory. They couldn't control the tours, the activities, and the hosts doing these little things. They can control icons. They can
This is a hot take.
Yeah.
So wait, and this is embarrassing for me because I'm never on the Airbnb app. I'm just like managing it through my OTA. Are experiences still around, or are they actually being replaced? Okay.
So they're still around for now, but there's been a lot of operators that have been realizing like they're getting turned off or like canceled bookings, and Airbnb's closing their experience, not the whole experience, but there's more to it. When you were, I guess, like this last update, did you see that they were like announcing all this PR? There's a ton of generated articles and podcasts and all this stuff. But every time, especially when Brian was talking on like a show or an article or quoted, they're always pushing to go to the app, to go to the app, go to the app. Even if you try to book on the browser, it wanted you to go to the app. So they're going to become a social media platform, not just an OTA, not just a place for hosts. All the host updates were about guest communication and itinerary planning and group chats and things that bring people together.
I love the group chat feature.
I hate it as a host because our PMS is like getting dinged and blown up 1,000 times. And our reservation agents are like, who's this? But we're figuring it out. Yeah.
I love it as a host because I used to get calls from like, you know,
a random
Phil's mom, like Nancy, who like can't get Phil on the line. And now she's just like messaging me in the app, and it's good for my nervous system.
That works. Yeah.
Okay. So icons, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Part of me doesn't get it. And like, admittedly, this is because I don't have an inner child. Like I'm like not someone who like goes to like Disney World or anything like that.
You're not a Disney adult?
I am. Are you a Disney adult?
No.
Oh, thank God. I was going to say something like really.
Anyone who is,
we
so
love
sorry.
that for you.
for you.
Icons. What's your take on them? Like, what are they? Are they making money? How do you become an icon? Can anybody become an icon? I just don't get it.
So, okay, going into the experiences versus icons. Icons was a lot of people are thinking a PR stunt. And I hate the word stunt for this because, like I said, Brian doesn't think in like short-term thinking. He doesn't. He thinks in decades. So this was a PR strategy, and it definitely helps because, again, they're trying to push users to the app. It was a great like new user engagement sign up. It caused over, I think, 8,500 articles that were backlinked to Airbnb, tons of press, tons of stuff. And the reason for it is because, again, Airbnb can control icons. They can't control experiences. So my thinking is that icons is not going to be for everybody. Like, obviously, if you create something really cool, like the, forget her name, I think it's Kristen Wolf, who created like the potato house.
Yes.
Yeah. So that can become an icon, I think. I think they'll open it up to hosts or operators in the future. But right now, this is Airbnb's game of getting into owning the asset. So the Up House, they own. They did not rent out through another party or lease it or anything like that. They obviously can't own Kevin Hart and going on tour with him, but they own that experience. They own that whole user experience from the day you book it to the day you go through. So,
wow. Yeah. Do you think that they're going to get more into the ownership game?
I think so, but only through that. It's been Brian's dream, and his inspiration was Walt Disney. So he's always wanted to be an Imagineer. He's a designer at heart. Airbnb for the last 15, 20 years has been a build-up for him to become finally an Imagineer of his own without working for Walt Disney. So I think Icons is going to be the first step of their ownership kind of reign, and they're going to then probably eventually favor their own stuff. Unless you get approved as an icon, then you get more favor, and it's going to drive a bunch of different stuff.
Well, Brian, I want this for you. We think that you deserve this.
You're already a billionaire, but let's just go ahead and give you more.
I'm so happy for you, and I hope that it does work out. And if you need a realtor, you know where to find me, Good Neighbor Realty.
Exactly.
Okay, so Icons, that's really cool that they're like getting into the ownership space. I know that people listening are probably nervous about that, but yeah. I think ultimately, like, they are definitely leading the charge in like what is working today for consumers. Like, they decided to like do all the different categories, and like that's changed like what our customers are looking for, whether that's like an A-frame or a dome or a campground. And so I think that the moves that he's making are actually cultural shifts, and it actually like broadens up like the general consumer audience that we have that might want to come and like experience something that they would not have experienced before. And so I think that they're pioneering something that could be beneficial for others in the future.
100%. And it's going to really change the game for the operator who thinks they can just get this house and throw some furniture in. Not that that's been the case recently, but I think it's even harder for us, as I have a property management company on the side. And even we're seeing like, okay, like you have to look at your listings and your properties and start thinking about refresh and all this other stuff that you could have gotten away with maybe for a while, but now it's changing. All the ways that we look at operations and properties that we want to bring on and not bring on. And yeah, so it's making it a little bit more harder, but in a good way. I think the bottom, we saw a lot of people join Airbnb and short-term rentals through COVID. And I think the bottom's falling out and the rest that stay will just rise. So
I agree. And I think the cool thing is it's giving like everyday people now access to become like resort owners or, really like experiential stay owners, when before, maybe we were all just dreaming about renting a bedroom in our home, because that's where Airbnb started. And so I almost feel like we're getting to grow up with them, like the people who are adapting to the new things that are emerging through Airbnb, Brian. So
yeah,
it's kind of cool.
Couldn't disagree with you. Yeah.
We also decided that we were going to talk about some things that are hot and some things that are not. So like, let's start with like things that are not hot in today's market. Like what is not working when it comes to short-term rentals, boutique hotels, Airbnb stays? Like, what are you seeing?
So maybe your audience may not like this. I know mine didn't like some of this when I said this, but no longer are the days of hiring VAs overseas and having everything automated and tech enabled and da-da-da-da. Like, it's no longer that game anymore. You have to have boots on the ground. You have to have hospitality, which again, everyone's like, well, I have hospitality through my nice messaging. You don't. I'm sorry. They don't care about any of that. Like, yes, it's nice to feel like you're talking to a person, but when I get a message the moment I book, I know that's automated. There's no way you're just like, yep, send. Oh, got a booking send.
Damn it, Will. Like, this is bad news for me.
I was gonna say, but like what we do automated messages, but we do like 7-8 minutes after booking. So it feels like, okay, like they're not eagerly waiting for me to book, but when I do book, they do give me attention pretty close to the time of booking.
I'm going to change my automated message to be 7 minutes from booking.
7-8 minutes is a good number.
I think that's a hot take, because like now people that have been in this industry for the last couple of years are kind of ready to scale. They're kind of ready to do solutions like VAs. What do you think is the solution? Like, do you think it's like hiring a property manager? Like, what's a good way for operators to not spend too much time managing, but still give that warmth?
I think like the balance of automation and tech is really good. Like I know I just said it was going to be the no longer type situation, but you can do it at a point where it helps streamline a lot of the tediousness and lets you become more aware of ways to increase moments. So you and your husband are coming to my A-frame for a weekend, right? You get an automated message from me, but you're messaging back like it's your 10-year anniversary. Cool. You get an automated response saying, thanks again for, staying with us. We're so excited. I can now say, oh, cool. I know Chantal's having a 10-year anniversary. I'm going to go get a bottle of wine. I'm going to go do this. And I'm going to have a handwritten note. And I'm going to do all these like little things that were automated, but I can now actually go execute on making moments.
I like that a lot. And I am so bad at this. Like when people are like, it's my birthday, or like, it's like, I'm so like dead to those messages.
Just dead inside.
I'm absolutely dead inside from that perspective. I'm like, great. But you're right. Like, and that's something that I probably could like implement with like my team.
Yeah.
Like I have a cleaner that would probably be excited to like go to the store, pick up a bottle of wine and write a card, and I could compensate her for that. Is that like, how are you managing like like your management team in a way that they're able to do stuff like that?
So we have an inventory of gifts, which is basically either in the owner's closet of the home where obviously guests don't have access to, or if our housekeeper is like a housekeeping company rather than an actual like employee of ours, they will have an inventory of gifts and then like blank cards and other things. So like anniversary gifts versus birthday gifts versus wedding gifts. Like we kind of just use those three categories as our mains. And then we kind of veer off if like something special happens, or if it's like a Disney thing, or because we have a property in Orlando. So usually kind of just tweak it a little bit, but those are our inventory, and then we just customize it. So like, okay, our housekeeper in Orlando, like Flavia, can you write a note saying, happy 10-year birthday, Tim, blah, 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 and put like a nice little Mickey Mouse gift there for him. And that goes a long way, especially if something goes wrong at the house. Like I can use an example, the AC going out in Orlando at this time of year. So like it went out and it sucked, but they were out by the time it was getting really warm and we were able to get someone in, but still that's not the best experience. But that gift saved us from a 4-star to a 5-star.
And like those things are just what makes an experience feel really high end. Like my husband and I, we just got back from France.
Yeah, you guys were on the road for a while.
It was a long time. It was like 2 weeks, and we stayed at all of these like fancy resorts, and every single one of them had these like very personalized like notes. And I like the idea of a gift like closet. I'm going to get one for the brokerage.
Yeah,
too.
It's like a little inventory, just keep it stocked. And when you have those automations go up and then you get maybe flagged through like an AI thing or whatever, you just go pull it out, put it out.
Wow, you're about to make a lot of my guests a lot happier, and I'm sure a lot of our clients too.
I love it.
Okay, so VAs are out. Anything else that's like out before we move into some of the things that are in?
As of right now, I think that's mostly from an operations standpoint. I think, it's really hard because everyone gets into this space for a different reason, right? I want financial freedom. I want time freedom. I want to build long-term wealth through real estate. I love hospitality and I love connecting with people. Like it can be anything. So I think the outs are just the negatives of what we saw people get away with in COVID. If you're going to be high tech and automations, then you can't have like the highest ADRs, in my opinion. If you want to be a mixed match of high service and some high tech, or like low tech, high service, you're going to be able to charge more and be able to have those experiences, because that's what the guests are wanting. As you can tell from icons, I'm sure when they pull up to the up house, they're not just like getting an automated door code from Brian saying like, thanks, Chantal, here's your door code. Have fun with Carl. Like, it's not going to, that's not it. So there's going to be some service behind it.
I like that scale, like super high tech. You might not get as high as ADR, but that could work for like if you have a big like apartment building that you're, you know, having a bunch of units and it's more of like a transient stay. Like those people probably would not benefit as much as, you know, something that's like very unique and more experiential.
Yeah.
I like that. What caught you mentioned like people get into the hospitality world for a lot of different reasons. What got you involved, and what all have you dabbled in? Because we didn't really touch in the beginning on like all the things that you have done within the space. Yeah. So what got you involved, and what are some of the things that you've done within hospitality?
So I got originally involved in short-term rentals through my parents. So they had a long-term rental and they're like, this sucks. We heard about this thing called Airbnb, and I was a hotel manager. So they're like, can you run it like a hotel? And I was like, of course, this is cool. And so that was kind of my initial dabble to short-term rentals. But I had to chauffeur an event company in Spokane, Washington. It was a horrible business venture.
Well, I was an event manager too.
What
like,
the heck?
This is so
Are
weird.
we twins?
We might be. Will and I have a lot of like weird, like, so Will and I found out before the show, like both of us come from like families that were in the church. We both believed that we were going to be in full-time ministry at some point. We are both very committed to high quality sleep scores.
100% sleep scores are live or die.
We're I would say maybe a little neurotic about that at times. And now you had an event management background. That's crazy.
Yeah. So like during that time, and I'd said this on another podcast I was on recently, where I was like, I hate paying for my own bills. So I got this car and I had this car payment. I was like, how do I get rid of this car payment? And I was like, oh, I can chauffeur people around in this car and like they'll pay me and I'll make enough money to cover my car payment. So that's what I started doing. Long and behold, this thing called
so were you like
Uber.
driving?
Oh, I was suited up.
Well, you could have made Uber.
I know, but I was already too late. Travis beat me. So I got basically like 6 months into it, and I was like, why are all my clients like telling me that I need to get on this app? Because I was texting people and coordinating all these crazy schedules, and like we had a ton of events and things happening at like the arena in Spokane, and I was just like, why am I getting like destroyed right now? And then everyone's like, yeah, you gotta get on Uber. And I was like, what the hell is Uber? And then I looked and I was like, oh shit. I don't know if this is gonna work. So God, I did get on Uber, but
You're not the owner of Lyft by chance?
I wish. God. I wish I had invested. I wish I was just like, here's my money.
Yeah.
Just like buy stock.
Yeah.
But anyways, that business ended up failing. But I remember picking up some clients at this 4-diamond resort, kind of like business hotel in Spokane. And I just remember looking through the valet port, and it was like pure glass windows. And so you could see inside the lobby, and it was like all these people in like martini glasses and fancy dresses and suits and ties, and like the ambiance, I could feel it. You're like, oh, that looks fun. And so I was like, well, I got these suits and ties that I can't no longer use for my chauffeur business. So I'm going to go apply for a job at this hotel. And I got hired on the spot and fell in love with hospitality through that. And then
what did you like about hospitality?
I love people. So when I was doing like 600 check-ins a day, I would find ways to connect with guests and make little moments and give them drink vouchers and upgrade them for a special event, or like, it was just really cool. And I had my repeat customers for business travel, because we're kind of like a convention hotel, but really high end, like talking like everyone was very buttoned up. And so Mr. Wall, Mrs. Monroe, and then Mr. Chardine and Mrs. Chardine, because they like lived long distance but were married, and he would book with his Amex and like want to pay with his Visa, and like just these little things you could remember about them that would make their experience. I mean, so much
it sounds like you were helping facilitate like a wild affair, but
I think that actually was happening, and I was just like, they didn't want to tell me, but we kind of put the two together. I was like, you live in Seattle and you live in Spokane and you fly here once a week to see your wife? Interesting. And you have the same last name. Okay.
But that's hospitality.
Yeah, 100%. I don't judge. I took that secret to the grave until now. So
we're sorry, Mr.
We're so sorry, Brad. Don't hurt me. It's going to call me one day.
That is so funny. Yeah. So, okay. So then you were a hotel manager, and then like what happened from there? Like when did you get your first short-term rental? When did you start Hospitality FM?
Yeah, so it kind of happened. I had my first podcast, which I still run today, which is Slick Talk, and I started that in 2018. I was hotel management in Oregon after that hotel in Spokane. And then my parents kind of exposed me to Airbnb, and I started talking about it more. And then 2019, I was like, all right, I'm quitting my job. I'm going to do the podcast full time. I was getting enough sponsorship revenue and all this other stuff. Got into management. And then in 2021, I had 2 shows I was hosting and had a line of podcasters and a line of advertisers wanting to basically learn the same thing from me. And I was full on advertising, and I couldn't help like edit all these people's shows. So I kind of married the 2 together and started a network. So
that is so cool that happened. And then like, what are some of the shows like on the network for people that might be interested in particular in short-term rental?
Yeah. So if you're a short-term rental person, STR Secrets by Mike Sjogren, STR Unfiltered by Bill Faith, No Vacancy with Natalie Palmer. The list can go on. Like we have, I think in the short-term rental sector alone, we have over 20 podcasts. Rich Sommers, The Sommers Report. We're, with pretty much everybody.
That's awesome.
Except for you guys.
Yeah, coming soon. That's awesome. So, okay, so podcast happened, and then you have this management company. Do you currently operate any of your own personal short-term rentals or managing for others?
Not yet. I'm looking for anyone out there to become potentially a hard money lender.
Oh, let's go. Well, why haven't we talked about this?
Well, this is new because I've like figured out like through a lot of friends that own real estate. Being self-employed sucks to get a loan. So I was like, well, I don't want to go through all that process. I'm just not the patient person. So I was like, maybe I can put my money to use in a different way. So,
anybody who is looking for some capital, it
TBD.
Sounds like maybe he would consider it.
Yeah, the deal's got to be good. You got to be good. There's a lot of good that needs to happen. But, yeah.
And then we were talking a little bit before about some things that we think are emerging in this space. One of them being retreats. Talk to me about that. So a lot of our clients are looking at purchasing properties to host retreats. So for instance, we have clients, Sina and Keisha, and they have like a really great like metropolitan like retreat center for women. And then I have other people who will buy like mountain properties. And like I've actually gotten a lot of inquiries on my mountain properties specifically for these retreats. Where did this come from? Is there actually a market for this niche?
I think so from the traveler's perspective. For me personally, it's more of, I think I got burnt out from conferences because you travel a lot. They're expensive. You bring your team. You got 250 to 3,000 people there, depending on the conference. And it's really hard to get FaceTime with everybody. So retreats are a more intimate, curated experience where, yes, you're traveling, but you're not spending as much, most likely. It's more intimate, so you're getting to touch face with everybody. And then, of course, you're not going to have that overwhelming amount of education or networking or whatever. So from a traveler's perspective, I'm sure a lot of professionals, whether they own their own business or are in a high-level industry, they're probably seeing the same thing. Like, okay, we're getting more bang for our buck at retreats and sometimes these trade shows or conferences and events. So I think it's a very cool way to open up your short-term rental inventory. Group bookings usually pay more because, again, there's a lot of bodies. So if you can figure out ways to kind of come up with group specials and find ways to bake in really good margin, I think you can crush it with retreats.
From an asset perspective, like if you are booking a retreat, and I know that you're doing one for 20 people, from a consumer side, like what are you looking for the property to have? Like what's important?
It's really hard to answer this question because this retreat we're doing at a hotel. It was created by Horst Schultz. Sorry. He created the Ritz-Carlton brand. And we wanted that because it has a Michelin rated restaurant. They have master sommeliers. So they have like that hospitality, the traditional hospitality experience with it. But from your perspective within the group settings, I think if you can offer curated spaces, whether it's like a place to gather and like actually do work rather than just like everyone kind of being like uncomfortably spread out throughout the house. Like I don't know how flexible floor plans can be, but I think if you can open up space or outdoors or your guys' mountain properties, I'm sure this time of year are perfect, right? It's just allowing bigger groups.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I've seen like some important things being like you don't want all king size beds if you're like hosting retreats. Like more like individual beds are nice to have, especially if, because like people don't want to share a bed with like someone that they don't know. And then like
unless you're doing couple retreats.
That's true. Couples retreats. Yeah. It kind of depends on your niche. And then like more individual bathrooms. And so like more en suites is something that's like a really big deal. And then, like what you said, like lots of like outdoor spaces or amenity spaces for people to gather and either work or like take like a group photo. I've seen that. Also, we are having more and more people like look into like these boutique hotels or even like motels that they can renovate. And that's like such a great type of asset, particularly for small retreats.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I think you see a lot of people in the short-term rental space get into boutique hotels. You don't see a lot of boutique hotel or hoteliers go into short-term rentals. They still think we're the devil. So it's interesting because like if they do come over to this side, they try to like keep it quiet to their community of like hoteliers. I've noticed this. They usually get like shamed for it. It's weird. It's like a whole weird, one side doesn't like us, but the other side likes the other side and is open to collaborating. It's weird. But I just interviewed,
because I mean, Airbnbs are like the Uber to your business back in the day.
R.I.P. Still hurts. Okay, so I actually was just interviewing a guy named Ryan Killeen, who is based in Vancouver, but they have this hotel called the Annex, and it has no front desk. It has like, food and beverage options, but basically you get your door code and they have a concierge that just takes care of you when you're there. So it's very...
Where does the concierge stay?
They don't have they're just floating around with their iPad. They're there to help you. Like it's a casual boutique hotel. So like they're in like a hoodie and whatever, jeans and a beanie or whatever. Like they're very hip, you know?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, cool spot. It's called the Annex, but they're expanding into Palm Springs and they were showing me the deal. And basically they're buying 2 motel, like kind of like Route 66 type properties. And they were like 46 doors or 46 rooms, but they realized that the owner currently had a bunch of closed off or like opened up spaces, basically like connecting the, like the rooms that would have like the door right between them. They were opening those up and calling that one room. So when they shut doors, they actually were able to increase it from 46 doors to like 60 something. So they're,
and
they're going to turn it into like this boutique property, like their property in Vancouver. So they're carrying that brand over and actually focusing on, again, high tech, high touch, no front desk. You get your door code. It's automated. You can book on Airbnb, Expedia, Booking, or whatever, but it's not like your traditional hotel.
Are they needing less staff to deliver that experience?
Exactly. And the staff that they do have are concierge focused, or they're like creating activations. So doing partnerships with local businesses there and doing road shows or concerts or chess clubs and run clubs. Like they have more activity focused than just, your average like cocktail bar.
I think that is really cool for just the future of the industry. So I told you, my husband and I have been like tossing around the idea of like a campground.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways that you could use like a commercial space like that, whether it's like having local artists come and do a concert, or like in our case, we were looking at, there's like a fly fishing business like right down the street. Like they're really, or there's like a picnic business here where they'll come and set up like a luxury picnic. Like there's so many different ways to partner with like the community in like more of a commercial space. And so, I think that like maybe an emerging trend is like less staff in-house, but more leverage towards other businesses nearby.
Exactly. And that's like the issue with hotels, right? Like if you run a Marriott Courtyard, the reason why like hotels are hard is because they are so operationally heavy with staff. Human capital is expensive versus if you can actually find a model where you take some short-term rental savings where you got tech and you got a VA or you got one person on a property or in a destination that's managing multiple homes, you're saving a ton in your margin. And something I talked about like back in COVID in 2020, we used to have this castle. It was 22,000 square feet on 5 acres. And we were realizing people weren't coming to this city for any reason other than the castle. The castle was the destination. The same pattern that we're seeing with icons. Icons are becoming the destination. They don't care about the city or the state or the country. They care about that experience. So from a boutique hotel, short-term rental side, if you can create the destination as your property and then have also the benefit of a really good destination like Palm Springs, like if you go there, it's Coachella, you have kind of that 1960s vibe because it's, again, that whole era of boutique hotel and culture and all the other history that kind of goes in there. You can now become very, very profitable with lighter human capital, more history and more experience, and again, increasing your brands and your profitability.
Yeah, and I think that partnership is so powerful too, because like that's like the thing that I love about being in this space is like how many different people benefit from it. And I think that people are hungry for that and that they're wanting to do that because like people are learning that we could collaborate and have more affiliated like experiences and bring more audiences, because that's kind of the culture that we're in now. Like that's the name of the game for business in general.
It's an audience game.
Yeah.
100%. It's not about, your product. Like, yes, your product matters because if you have an audience and then your product sucks, you're going to lose that audience. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's all eyes and ears.
What do you think about people that are working to brand like a particular asset? Like, are there any tools that you really like for people that want to create like their own like booking platform or garner their own audience online? Like, what are you seeing people do to stand out, to make it like its own brand and experience?
Yeah. I would say the tech part is really hard. I highly recommend not building your own tech. There's plenty of off-the-shelf pieces that are way less expensive, because when people think, oh, I don't like this PMS, but I'm going to go build my own. You don't know that PMS is paying hundreds, if not millions of dollars a year in order to maintain that technology. So if you build your own, guess what you're going to have to do? Maintain it. And it's really expensive to do. So if you can get something off the shelf, do that. But I think it's, again, coming into like the cheesy hospitality theology side. It's how you make people feel. So how's your brand connect with people? And I hate the term, who's your avatar? I'm not a fan of that. But if you can know who you're talking to and know how to like actually get them emotionally involved into what you do and how you like your mission and the impact that you have in your local community or whatever your kind of driver is, I think that is in itself is going to be the power leader. And then you need to be able to capture kind of like, do you know Mark Simpson at all with Boostly, Book Direct, all this other stuff?
I've heard of Boostly.
Okay. Yeah. So he always says this, never, don't build your house on someone else's land. Mm-hmm. So don't just depend on Airbnb. Don't just depend on the OTAs for these bookings. Yes, use them, fill in your calendar, but capture emails, capture your guest information, use a CRM if you need to, take notes of what they like, what they don't like, create that human experience piece and own that asset, which is your traveler's information. And then that becomes part of your brand. You're able to email them, you're able to call them, you're able to text them, you're able to do these things that prevent from, if Airbnb turns you off, losing everything, or Vrbo.
Or if they decide to get only into the ownership game.
Exactly.
And they could do that if they wanted to.
Exactly. So that's kind of my perspective on brand.
I think that that's a really good perspective to think about, like capturing. And I have clients, like a first step for that is like using a Wi-Fi system that requires your guests to put in their email address. Like StayFi is one. That's a really good tool. So then you can start retargeting those people, give them the option to book direct. You'll make more, they'll save more money. But then if you do get into like more of a boutique hotel experience or, a campground, or you're running resorts, or you're running retreats, like you have all of this information that you can continue to sell to this audience who already likes you and trusts you.
Exactly. It couldn't have said it better myself. Literally, it gives you the opportunity to control your calendar, to control your revenue. You're able to really connect and like build. Again, I buy from companies mostly. Like, yes, I'm wearing Whoop or products like from Apple, and like I'm always going to have that, but I'm not personally connected. But if I have someone who sells me I don't know, whatever, and I become really invested in that, then I'm always going to come back to them. I'm never going to, like, even if I have a bad experience, I'm going to be like, hey, Chantal, she's cool though. Like,
yeah, she tried.
Yeah, we got a glass of wine and we talked about it and it was fun. I learned about her family and it was great. Like, that experience alone, it's just going to save you from what, like maybe if Apple did something and they had a huge bug, maybe I leave and go to Android and never turn back,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I think something that we've talked, like, I would say a theme of this conversation is just like people are really craving intimacy, like in general. And I think that that's something that Airbnb really capitalized on is they were like, everybody's lonely. Like we need to connect them in like community, and everything that they're doing is like community focused. And so for us to really focus as, short-term rental hosts or hoteliers or retreat people, like the name of the game right now is intimacy and is connection. And so like thinking about your customer from that perspective, I think that that's what's doing really, really well.
100%. And we're all humans. We want to be heard. We want people to listen. We don't want to just talk. We want to do this. Like people still crave that. COVID obviously changed everything, and not to be that guy 4 years later, but it was such a big point. And Brian talks about it from Airbnb. He struggled with loneliness even more, not just because of COVID, after he became a billionaire and went public and all this other stuff. Like loneliness is a big issue. We're connected to our phones. We're connected to all these things that connect us and bring us together. I know what you're up to without ever seeing you in Denver.
Right.
Because you're posting on Instagram or you're posting on this. But do I really actually connect with you? No, I'm not. I feel, but that feeling is temporary. It's a highlight.
Right.
So
yeah, it's such an important like problem to solve. And I think that that's where like some of the things that we're talking about that are hot, like the retreats and like even like the campgrounds, like the things that people are craving is like one-on-one conversation, being out in nature, because so many people are sad and depressed and lonely right now. And so it just like gives a lot of purpose to like the things that we're doing. And we were
100%.
talking about calling before this. And here we are solving those 3 problems, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, we're doing it. No, it is true though. And like it's like speaking of the calling thing, and for our listeners, maybe a little context is that we were both supposed to be in ministry, like you said earlier, but I feel like we are in our own version now. Right? Like we're still using platforms. We're not speaking from a church platform. We're speaking into a microphone that hits however many people that choose to listen or search it. So there still is that like calling. I feel like we are, like you and I were talking, we're kind of conflicted sometimes. Do we miss it? Can we go back? Do we need to? But I feel like we kind of have it in our own way, just not the way that maybe our parents expected.
Yeah, I very much do believe that. And like it is cool, like when I don't know, like a lot of this podcast is about money, but like it's not all about money. And like if it is, then it's like it's not fulfilling at all. And so like if you are an investor who's like, wanting to like get into an asset, like the people that I see really thrive are the people who have like some like heart into this asset, who want to create like something that's special, who want to foster like the best things about being a human, like connectivity, nature, like inspiration. So yeah, I hope that we all do more of that.
100%. Yeah. Money's great. You can always make more. You can always lose it. It always comes back around somehow. But yeah, I think if you don't have anything outside of making money, like you can love the process. I've been learning this a little bit more through entrepreneurship, like loving the process of losing a client or gaining more clients or whatever the venture is, hiring more employees, etc. You can have fun with that process. But again, like there's no end goal for that. And so until you have like a real true end goal, I think it's really a really big struggle.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I've like found myself being like, well, the best thing I could have done is just buy everything that I've ever sold to a client. Like, I really do believe that from like a money perspective.
Oh, yeah.
But I've realized that I like definitely lean more towards like, I love the connection with the client and then also helping them like achieve something for their family and like getting to watch them create like something special. Like that for me. Yeah. Is actually more exciting than even owning like every asset in the world. And then the assets that I do own are stuff that like I like and think that somebody else would like. And like, I think that people just think that everybody in the space is like, only in it for like the dollars. And like, there certainly is that, but there is a lot of people in this space that I think are trying to really connect with people and do something for a purpose.
100%. I think we saw that phase in 2021, even 2019. You can even look back further. The people that were on YouTube, like, I can teach you to make $1 million on Airbnb in 1 year. Like, they phased out. Yes, there's still some of it around because at the end of the day, like, we are in this business to make money. We're not a nonprofit, so we're not a charity. We're not trying to like do something just out of the sake of being good. But like you said, a lot of this is stemmed from some kind of thing in our life that either we were told that we couldn't, and so we needed to do it out of spite, and now we've found some true confidence in us. Whether it's like a guy like Mike Sjogren, whose child was in the hospital for the first 2 months of his life, and he was out of PTO and had to go back to work while his wife and kid were in the hospital. Like, that was his why.
Wow.
Yeah. So like, that was his why. That's why he got into real estate and short-term rentals and hotels now. And now he spends almost all of his time with his son. So like, there is that piece. And I think when you have that true why, the true mission, it will just forever change. Yes, he's making money, but he's also getting to do the real thing that he wanted. So
yeah, and he's helping others do the same.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn guy.
I didn't know that.
Oh, I love LinkedIn. I'm like, that's my platform. I love
really?
LinkedIn. Yeah,
we're gonna have to talk about this.
Ooh, it's fun. I'll show you. I'll show you all the stuff.
Okay, cool.
It's not just a resume platform like everyone thinks, but LinkedIn, Wil with 1L Slickers, or on Instagram, Slick Talk Pod is my handle, and I try to post on there often. But if I do, it's gonna be like a mix of podcast stuff or F1. So that's what you're gonna find there.
Love it. Well, thank you for coming in today, Wil.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. This is so cool. I love what you guys are doing.
We do too. All right. See you next time.